Welcome back, everyone. Kevin Shea with Jim Wilson, the sports editor for the Telegram-Gazette, Home Team Magazine, and we are talking playoffs. Postseason football, Willie, finally it's here. Some teams, you know, they're going to have their complaints or whatever they're not in, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about who's in. We're on to who's in the playoffs,
we're on to
and we're going to begin with Division 6, Littleton, West Boylston, a rematch of a game early in the year.
First game.
Yeah.
First game of the year was Mike Ross's first game at West Boylston.
His debut.
Coach. And you know, it was a really close game because, like you said, you're trying to get acclimated. Rossi, just trying to hear who he has, what he can use. Littleton wasn't really playing in rhythm yet. They start smoking teams later on. So Littleton's really it hasn't been established yet. So this should be interesting to see what teams have learned since week one. I mean, does Littleton go in there and put 7 people on Cole McCubry and try to stop him? Because that's really what was shown. Cole McCubry is the best running back in Central Mass. So Littleton's got his work cut out trying to shut him down. They haven't faced anybody nearly as good as him all year.
No, and he averages 12 yards a carry, Cole McCubry. And then, you know, what I think more than anything else is I think that this West Boylston team will take the biggest leap between week one and now, just because of, as you mentioned, new system, new coaching staff. And one thing about the double wing is the double wing breeds toughness. If you look at the teams that play the double wing, Holy Name, Shepherd Hill, now West Boylston, and before when Rossi was at North and then at Grafton, every single one of those teams, when you talk to their opponents, they're tough. They're tough. They hit. They're a tough team to play against. They're not fun to play against. And that toughness starts to manifest itself amongst the whole team. Everyone, you have to be, you can't hide. In a double wing offense, you can't hide. You have to be a physical player. You have to be tough. I'll guarantee those players right now are a lot tougher now than they were in week one, just because of everything they've had to go through. They're going to be a difficult team to play against in Littleton. It's a different West Boylston team. You know, you're still going to favor Littleton because, hey, Littleton's undefeated. They've taken on all comers and they beat them. Bassett's still a great player, you know, carrying on that family tradition. But this is a far different West Boylston team than they faced in week one.
And they only lost to them 22-6. So look at how Littleton's really dismantled the teams in the next 7 weeks. I mean, I always say if Northbridge wasn't around, people would be talking about how good Littleton's defense is because they posted like 4 shutouts. Only one team has scored more than 6 points on them all season. That was last week against Lunenburg. And so that was one of those games where, probably, I don't think you draw much on it. Littleton's really good. They lost Renaccio, the best wide receiver. So that's going to be something to watch and see if West Boylston can capitalize on that. But 22-6, so it's not like you're looking at this game and seeing a rematch. Okay, we got our doors blown off the first week. We're just happy to be here. West Boylston looks at it with McCubry at full power. What can they do? How they're going to throw it? It's no secret what they're going to do. It's Rossi. It's not, he's not going to throw the ball 30 times a game and throw a big wrinkle at him. It's basically be smash mouth football. But the problem is Littleton's defense is probably good enough to stop this team. So that's what it comes down to.
And it comes down to when you're stopping the double wing, you have to be physical up front. It all still, I think, comes down to that front 7 and maybe even the front 5. Can they plug every gap? Can they hold the fort, so to speak? Because if you can do that, you can stop the double wing. If you can't, if you get a leak one way or another, then that's where all they need and all McCubry needs is just a little sliver, and then he's gone. And he's beyond the linebacker because you're looking, you lose him in the wash. You can't arm tackle McCubry. You know, you need 2 and 3 guys there to wrap him up.
Linebacker's going to be big in this game because you got to figure McCubry just hitting the line is going to get 2 or 3 yards penetration. Like you said, he's averaging over 12 yards a carry, which is insane. So they have that. You need that second level to come up and meet him and try to limit those gains. You know, guys like Steve Collins, Nick Fontenelle have to step up and have a big game to contain West Boylston.
And what happens too is when you're trying to face McCubry and you're facing this double wing attack, it's the second half and the fourth quarter in particular. The linebackers and the safeties. In the beginning of the game, everyone's fired up. You're coming out, you're hitting. Then as that wears on, it becomes a little less appealing to hit this kid every single play. And then you maybe hesitate a half step because you don't want to, because you're taking punishment every time you tackle him. And then you hesitate just that half step, and he's gone by you for a big game.
A car crash every game, every play gets a little tough to swallow by the fourth quarter.
Looking at the other one, St. Bernard's and Blackstone Valley Tech. St. Bernard's has Cooper Bigelow. He kind of does it all for the Saints as a quarterback. He can run with the football. He can throw with the football. Blackstone Valley Tech, you talk about a program and a championship program, and that's what Jim Archibald has built here. He's built a program that expects to win, that doesn't back down from anyone. They go in with confidence. They go in with a swagger.
Exactly. Everybody looks at Valley Tech this year. They don't have the Dan Avery kind of player, one of those great quarterbacks. They don't have that the linchpin to sort of bang their drum with. They have, like Dylan Ramos, Chris Lear. They have a lot of really good players that can sort of complement Hector Petrie, their quarterback, who's another one like Bigelow. Like the guy can throw the ball or get the key yards on the ground.
Yep.
So I think that makes them dangerous. You said it yourself, Archibald and his staff have done a great job making sure that's a program now. No matter what they graduate, Valley Tech's going to be in the mix in the year. I think that's a testament to the hard work they do down there. But they're a tough team. And I don't know if St. Bernard's playing in Dual Valley. I don't know if they have that kind of mentality every week to get up against a team. But you know what? They had a game against Uxbridge last weekend. They hung on. They got up big early. They hung on to that win. That was a good win for their program. So I think it's probably one of the better games you're going to see that Friday night.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's a great point. That win against Uxbridge is a phenomenal win. Uxbridge is one of the better teams out there. But Uxbridge's offense is more of a passing offense. They're gonna go and they're gonna exploit you with their skill guys, and they have phenomenal skill guys. We'll get to them in just a bit. But now when you're playing a Blackstone Valley Tech team that wants to come straight at you, and they want the board drill. They want every single play to be the board drill. We want to smack you in the mouth, head on head, let's go. Who's going to be tougher? That's a different type of mentality you have to have, and it is completely a different game that you have to play.
Exactly. Because I think Shepherd Hill or St. Bernardsville looks at this more as they have to stop us. Because like you mentioned, Bigelow as quarterback, he can kill you with his arm or his legs, but to get the Zach attack over at wide receiver with Zach Merchant and Zach Bingham, those are going to be two guys to stop. You can't really double one of them because the other one will burn you. AJ Robichaud, James Zaris at running game, they can win a game for him. So they have so many weapons. It's curious. I'm interested to see how Valley Tech sort of matches up. Who's their big responsibility? Who's their guy they want to put a parachute on and let the other people beat them?
All right, now we move on to Division 5. Northbridge and Oakmont. Northbridge has let up just one touchdown all season long, and that came to Tantasco. So you talk about that Northbridge defense, and everyone talks about that offense, but first and foremost, defense wins championships. Northbridge has that championship caliber defense, and they have the players. I mean, Jake Wood is like a Swiss Army knife out there on the football field. Put him wherever you want to, he's going to make plays. Keenan Quinama, a disruptive force on that defensive line. He's like John Randall was. You can't block him. He's got a great motor, and he's going to, every single play, if you're a quarterback or running back, out of the corner of your eye, where's Quinama? Where's Quinama? Because he's that good of a player. Chauffeur, for all the numbers he puts up at quarterback, may even be a better safety. I mean, he is. You try to throw the ball, and that's one of the things. Northbridge gets up on you so quick. Now you try to throw the ball against that secondary, forget about it.
That's the thing. If they get those two quick touchdowns, and then the defensive stop, you can't play catch up against Northbridge. 345-7. That's what they allowed to score. That's insane. That's that's like a Madden season. It's really, you can't really.
It's a video game.
You can't make that stuff up. And just in terms of their defense being so good. We always say every week, if that offense wasn't so prolific, more people would be talking about their defense.
Yes.
Because like you said, that's what the problem is. They shut teams down early, and they're such a tough team to just chase points against. You can't.
No.
Because you still got to stop that offense.
Right.
And not nobody can do that.
Right. Now you look at the other game, and it's Uxbridge and Leicester, and we were talking about Uxbridge and what they do, and Oliver Sawyer, and the great wide receiver, and their quarterback, Max White-Cohen. Phenomenal combination. And this is a team, Uxbridge, that can move the ball up and down the field really quickly. Now, this is a rematch game, too. Uxbridge and Leicester played earlier in the year. Uxbridge won the game. So Leicester knows, okay, this is a team that can throw the ball all over the field. There isn't a route they can't throw, and they can really, really move it up and down. It'll be interesting to see what Tim Griffiths and his staff dials up defensively to try to put a parachute on that Uxbridge offense.
The good thing for Leicester is they're not scared. They know, like you said, they played each other earlier. They were up 14-6 at halftime. They know a couple big plays put Uxbridge up at the end to get the win. But you look at that game, I think when they're looking at films and everything, they're not looking at saying, what are we going to do? They know they can win this game. They know it's going to be competitive. They know if they did a couple things differently the first game, they might have walked out with the win. They're hoping they've seen what they can do. But granted, Uxbridge is much better. I mean, look at this point when they played them, really played in the beginning of the season.
Right.
You look at games like I think we mentioned earlier, the St. Bernard's game. They went down, I believe, like 28-7. They came back to that game and made it close at the end. They didn't quit. They know they have the weapons that no matter how much you're up on them, they can come back and one or two big plays to Oliver Sawyer, Josh Callanan. They're right back in it. I mean, they're that good of an explosive offensive team, which I think Leicester has to be careful on.
And I think Leicester will kind of relish the role of the underdog, and I think they won't have any problem getting up for this game and looking to knock off the favored team. Doherty and Holy Name, rematch. Again, game early in the season. Doherty won that game. We've talked about Doherty and the great weapons they have. Tavian Vassar, absolute beast as a running back. He can run over you. He can run around you. He's got speed. He's got power. averages 10 yards a carry. Then you got Manny Brown averaging 12 yards a carry. You got Ricky Webster. So they have so many weapons on offense that they can, they can pound you between the tackles. They can run outside sweep on you. They can throw the ball. Just those little wheel routes to the running back.
They're so good. They have so many playmakers. That's the thing. I mean, think Doherty's one of those teams. You mentioned Uxbridge a couple minutes ago, having the ability to sort of turn the game around in one play. I mean, they've returned a bunch of kickoffs back for a touchdown. That's really deflating the team to score and go up. And all of a sudden, Ricky Webster comes back, makes a highlight film for his huddle on that play, makes a couple cuts, he's gone.
Yep.
So I think that's a big weapon for Doherty to have, just to know that confidence. Hey, we gave up a big play, we fell behind, but we get the ball back. When our offense doesn't have to get on the field, and they're already putting points up.
And they blocked a punt last week as well. Then on the other side for Holy Name, Kevin Mensah, phenomenal running back, number 2 rusher in Central Mass. And this is a Holy Name team that has won 5 of their last 6. They come in with a lot of confidence rolling. It all started with that big win over Bedford, a dual county league team that made the playoffs in Eastern Mass and won their first game.
It's a big thing. Mike Bucko said all year he doesn't really know which team is showing up for Holy Name because sometimes they do a lot of things right, sometimes they're scratching their heads wondering how the plays broke down a certain way, which has been the case with Holy Name the last 5 or 6 years.
That's true.
So I think with that, but again, this is a very dangerous game for Doherty because, like I said, Mensah, do they have the athletes on defense for Doherty to match up with Mensah and try to stop him?
Right.
It's a big weapon to have. 1,200 yards rushing. He's going to have the game on his back.
And again, I think it comes down to that line. And can that Doherty line hold the fort, and can they plug gaps and in some instances take on the double teams? Okay, now to Tantascwa and Grafton. And again, a rematch game. Tantascwa with that great offense and J.J. Howland, the leading receiver in Central Mass, Jordan Choquette. You and I were talking about this beforehand. If you're Grafton, do they put Melifonwu one-on-one on J.J. Howland? No one's been able to stop J.J. Howland all season long. No one's been able to even slow him down. So now you have Melifonwu, who's a little taller. Howland's a 6'6" receiver. Melifonwu maybe 6'3", 6'4". And that's an interesting matchup.
I think you have to. I mean, I'm not telling anybody what to do because I'm just infected in front of a TV screen. But I mean, when it comes down to you got to put your best player on their best player because I think you want to limit what he can do because Howland's the game breaker. He comes in. I mean, he gave St. Peter Marion trouble. He gave a couple. Every other team is worried about what to do against him. Yeah. So I think if you try to do that, maybe have some safety help on him. Try to just come on and get the double team when he gets down the field. You don't want him to break a big play against you. Because the first game was, 21-14. So it wasn't, again, another one like that Leicester game earlier. It's not a game that got away from anybody.
Right.
It was neck and neck, back and forth. So I think Tantascwa looks at it. They know they're in for a fight. They still got to stop Matt O'Brien.
Right.
So I think that's going to be another issue for as much as Grafton rather is worried about Howland, Tantascwa worried about how to stop O'Brien too.
And O'Brien's just a great football player. He's one of those kids too. Same thing. You can put him anywhere on the football field. He's going to make plays. He plays so hard. Every single play he plays hard. And he's another one of those runners that he's going to pound you every single play. He's not going to run out of bounds. He wants to run over you. And late in the game, people start to get sick and tired of trying to throw their shoulder into Matt O'Brien and getting the worst of it. And then they start to hesitate, maybe throw an arm out there, and then he breaks a 60-yarder for a touchdown. Now, looking at Division II, only have a couple minutes left for these. Neshoba and Marlboro. Neshoba the top dog right now with in Division II. But Marlboro coming off that huge win over Fitchburg, 42 points against Fitchburg. That's the most points allowed by the Red Raiders all season long.
Fitchburg is down this year, but I mean that's still impressive. Putting up over 40 on a Fitchburg team, it has to turn a lot. To know a lot of people when talking about Marlboro how good their defense is, that often show they can put up points too. And I think the show was looking at that as something to worry about. They didn't play each other in the regular season, so I think they're looking at that and saying, what can they do against? How do they stop that? How do they score points against these guys? All
right, Brian Short, too, great play there. All right, the rematch, Leominster St. John's. They played last week at Leominster. Leominster won that game. Leominster got up in that game 21-0. St. John's came back. What do you take from that meeting a week ago, and how much carryover is there for this week?
I'm curious how much carry, because I think knowing the two coaching staffs and how good they are, I'm curious if they showed everything they need to show. Because the game really, nothing was on the line except for a home game. So if they look at that and say, do we want to show that, does Moriarty have that triple bounce pass thing he saw watching some Pac-10 game at 3 in the morning? Does he have that in his back pocket? And, I'm not going to show that in the regular season game, but I'll bring it out for the playoff game when it's important.
Right.
Same thing. I mean, I think Leominster getting up early on. They've had some injuries, but they're still one of the best teams around.
Right.
And to have that and sort of just have, even though St. John's made the run, which they're going to do, they still found that second level, put their foot on the gas, and sort of pulled away at the end. So I think Leominster's the same way. Do they show everything that they have? So I'm curious to see how much is left in the tank and after that first game, because I don't think the first game really showed everything the team has.
Well, you have Noah Gray, too, such a great quarterback for Leominster. Can throw all over the field, can make any throw. Then you have with Dan Deeney that thunder, and he's just a physical player. And then St. John's, Tim Cassidy can do it all. He can throw the ball. He's such a weapon running. He probably was even a bigger weapon running in that first game. All right, well, we're out of time.
15 minutes.
As always, 15 minutes. It just goes like that in the blink of an eye. Next week, Willie and I will be back, and we'll be talking about the Central Mass Championship games, previewing those. But I'll tell you what, these semifinal games are going to be a lot of fun.
There's a lot of great games.
All right, Jim Wilson, I'm Kevin Shea. Plenty more of the Frenzy Extra coming up right after this.